Hey everybody, it's Catherine. What's up? I want to talk today about something that people who teach manifesting don't ever really talk about. And well, they do, but not in a way where I'm going to give it the context today that is going to make a lot of sense to you and something that you can correct and use to master your manifesting game. So the power of paradox is really, really important. And the paradoxical concept is that one thing is something else at the same time. And the nature of this universe and what we experience as 3D reality is definitely that. The paradox of I'm in a body, I'm in this vessel, but what is me? What is that beyond this anima that keeps this functioning meat suit going? What is beyond the mind? What is beyond the body? Well, it's the infinite you, it's the eternal you. You as a fractal of the entirety of consciousness with a capital C, carrying out a soul mission of experience. And in doing so, there are as many different versions of reality as there are sentient beings on this planet who are souls driving this meat suit to have experience. And through that, through our own individuated lens or scope of perception and perfection, we are feeding back into the infinitude of source what it is to have life, to feel life, to let it course through us, to be moved by the ebb and flow and the forces of life itself. So the paradox being you're an eternal you while currently having an experience of limitation of everything that's available. Now, is any one more true than the other? Not necessarily. If that is happening, you believe that you are a soul driving this meat suit, or the meat suit is holding the vessel as a container for your soul. Either way is fine. You can approach this any way you like. But understanding the paradox of you're not quite this, but you're not totally that either. That's kind of, in a nutshell, the entirety of what we call this reality experience in 3D. And it's, as souls, what we were very excited about coming here to play with. So stick with me here, because I'm going to give you something that grounds this and anchors it in a way that makes more sense. So when we are going after something that we desire, something we prefer to experience, don't we always have that energy of, well, if I can imagine it, it's not here, I'm over here, so I'm in this place of not quite yet, but not anymore this either. Because the second you have awareness that the current state of experience that you're having is not preferable to you, your awareness starts to open up to what is the next best thing here? What else could there be for me? Something that I prefer to experience more. So you're in that fulcrum point, you're in that void space. But the problem is that we usually view this void space, this fulcrum point, you could think of it as a tipping point of moving from one state of being to another. This is the sweet spot. This is what I need you to embrace here. So one way, and actually the most common way, most people treat this void space of not quite there, but also not quite who I used to be. It's actually pure magic to be in this space. It's this place where we get to be in the stillness, where actually all creation is taking place. Now, we have been conditioned to think that creativeness or being in a state of creation is very active. There's a lot of doings. There's a lot of making things or manipulating things so that one thing can happen, one thing can transform into another thing. The most active, I guess, aspect of creation is the stillness. And the reason this is because, well, let me give you an example. If you're watching this far, I think every one of you would be very easy to say, I've had some experience of try this manifesting technique. It works for everybody. And then you're over there saying, oh, it didn't freaking work for me. Why is that? Because this fulcrum point, this void space, this tipping point of moving from one state to another is not fully understood by most people who are teaching manifesting. What's in this space you think of as, because nothing is happening, at least to your mind, you already know that the ego and the mind is searching for evidence of, well, I only know things that are being created by a doing, some sort of activity. So the mind is already trying to control the whole process of manifesting. You don't manifest anything with your mind. You manifest with the eternal aspect of you that knows that everything and all that is already you. It's already here. What you are doing is just, through moving to different consciousness states, revealing more of what is available consciousness. Okay, so you're seeing more, you're removing the veils and the filters. So why is this stage so important? This stage is so important because in this stillness, there's one thing that happens every single time when we fully give ourselves over to and surrender to this stillness. The first thing you're going to notice is all of the shadow aspect of being in this place. In other words, you're going to have an experience of the anger, the fear, or sadness that you dread confronting when you go into stillness. This is important because this is exactly what you have placed in the way between where you've been and where you want to go. And so you are being invited and encouraged by yourself because everything is of you, by you, and for you, because you are everything. You are source. You are infinite intelligence. You're never not that. So you're not being served up a lesson. You're not even being invited into a learning experience. That's also highly misunderstood. Because if it's all you and you are entirely the creator of your reality, which is what I teach in this unity consciousness thought and action paradigm, then who's doling out lessons? Who is there to give you something to learn if it's all you? So what I propose instead, it's an opportunity in that moment to sit in the stillness, yes, with everything in that moment that's uncomfortable to you, because that's exactly what you've placed in the way between where you used to be and where you desire or prefer to go. When you relax into that through breath and presence, you start to unravel those big bad boogeymen that are in your consciousness that are literally showing up to say, hey, isn't it time that we settle this, that we dissolve this energy? You're not swatting away at it. You're not trying to get rid of anything. You're dissolving it back into the pure light of source so that it can become better used as fuel for creation. But the problem is, the second we go into this stillness, call it, a moment of imagination where you're sitting with your desired life and you're imagining it, you're feeling the sensations in the body as if it's already here, and then something kind of crops up. Oh, you're not allowed to have that. Remember that time that you tried to manifest this thing that didn't work out? In fact, it blew up in your face. All of those things come up because the mind wants to take over the process, because the mind does not like stillness. You have been teaching your mind effectively over a lifetime to not take you into stillness, because that's where all the discomfort lies. So your mind, like a good dog, like a good retriever, has said, okay, I'll make sure that there's no stillness. I'll make sure that when you go into stillness, you're thinking about laundry. You're thinking about that bill you didn't pay. You're thinking about what your grandma said to you in 4th grade. You're thinking about what that teacher said, that you'll never amount to anything. The mind is very good at doing exactly what you tell it to do. And for most of us over a lifetime, it's been telling us to be aware of any kind of stillness creeping in and avoid it at all costs. Run screaming from that place because you don't like being uncomfortable. This is your mind talking to you saying, we know you don't like being uncomfortable. So we're going to make sure that you're not in that situation where you're uncomfortable. This is the shadow aspect of being in this void space, fearing this space because you think those feelings that come up in that space, those obstacles between you and that which you want, are you. You've got very confused information and bad intel over a lifetime, thinking that if you've felt an emotion for long enough, it is you, it's your identity, it defines you. It doesn't. So you must be in that space of stillness. Notice the feelings as they come up. Notice where they reside in the body. Chances are they've been there in a long time. If you have issues, they're in your tissues. So feeling into that in stillness and breathing through with presence and remembering who the fuck you are, an eternal being as part of infinite intelligence, source creation, God itself. How can you be anger? How can you be fear? How can you be disappointment? How can that ever even encapsulate or define you in any way, shape, or form? So you start to pull the tethers back of where you've thrown out fishing lines of your power to these ideas about yourself, these misperceptions of yourself over a lifetime. You start to pull all that back in to the great ocean of infinite intelligence that is you, and you get to repurpose that energy. And what's really amazing about this moment of paradox, is you realize I did choose that. I did choose to choose against my own best interest. And maybe I've done it over a lifetime, but I am not that. I have chosen that, but that doesn't mean I am that. And so here I am now, not quite where I'd like to be, not quite in the place of my preferred experience, but I know I'm no longer that. And the second you start to have that reveal, you realize it's not a lesson at all. I'm having this revelation in this moment of being right in the middle of everything, right in this incredible, magical, alchemical space of creativity and action, of me creating my reality through what I no longer choose, what I no longer want to choose or prefer to experience, and what I do prefer to experience. None of those things, those definitions, those identities, even those feelings that I was afraid to confront before, say anything about me. I'm not obligated to be in that identity any longer. And the second you start to have that revelation, it starts to filter into your body. You start to ground into it. You keep breathing. You're in presence. You feel safer with this wide open space of stillness. You have unlocked such a sweet spot of pure creation for yourself. And not only that, it feels great. Not only that, it doesn't take that long to do. It's just that when the mind gets involved, it'll create a million different distractions. And you'll notice it sometimes when you're trying to imagine your best scenario and you in it. You as the first person experiencing it is the best way to formulate a vision instead of looking at yourself on a screen. That puts you in another aspect. In that sense, it could be anyone. But when you view yourself as the first person having the preferred experience that you want, you start to, when you hold this space, when you're still working with anger, fear, and sadness, the mind will create a million different distractions for you. But the second you keep coming back to presence, coming back to breath, stop trying to avoid those feelings and rather just sit with them. They don't define me. This disappointment that I feel and I'm sitting with right now, it doesn't define me. This grief that I feel, this sadness that I feel, I can feel it and I won't be undone by it. I'm here to feel all the feelings. I'm here to have the creative forces of life move through me. It's only me that's stopping up or mucking up that process, trying to latch onto something or attach to something like it has some meaning about me. Actually, it doesn't. None of those things that I felt even 5 minutes before, 5 years before, they don't define me and they don't have any meaning for me unless I allow them to. So this is this kind of paradox, which is really the foundation for paradigm shift, moving from one consciousness state of being to another. And it starts to get really delicious the longer you can hang out in this space and stop swatting away the feelings like they're flies or mosquitoes. And instead, when they come in, notice this feeling, this sensation has been trying to get your attention for probably a really long time. And you'll start to feel a sense of relief, moving from this shadow aspect of creation and why you stop any manifesting process in its tracks and say, this doesn't work for me. It's because you're not feeling the things that come up the second you go into stillness, the anger and the fear and the sadness. I'm repeating myself because I really want you to get this. And if you hear it enough times, maybe it'll actually sink in. I had to hear it enough times. I had Source knocking on my door saying, hey, which is just me talking to me, it's time to really sit with this and be okay in a place of safety with your feelings. It's okay to feel all of your feelings. And just because you're having like a really great time and things are moving well for you, moving along well for you, you'll notice that sometimes you might fear anything that's going to come up in your reality that might make you want to go back to anger, fear, or sadness. And you'll avoid certain situations, you'll avoid certain people, and you might start calling it boundaries, but what you're doing is a kind of bypassing. Now, I'm not saying that, people or situations that are causing fuckery in your life that you shouldn't say, well, you don't want to say, I'm going to completely remove these people and these situations from my life, because when you're doing it from a place of fear, it's like saying these situations or these people have power over me. They don't. The paradoxical nature of that particular thing, especially with boundaries, is to say, I can allow this person or this situation in my presence. I can be calm and I can be present and I can breathe. And in that moment, I can make a clear choice. I no longer prefer to be in this person's company. I no longer prefer to have this kind of situation. And when you're in that kind of clarity and you're doing it without fear, you're doing it without desperation, you're doing it without a sense of despair or a sense of hurriedness or sense of urgency, you're breathing and you're calm and you're declarative in that space. No longer prefer to experience that. I only am available for or prefer to experience this. That stillness starts to unveil to you or reveal to you all the different ways that you can access what you prefer to experience. And in that magical alchemical switch, in that moment, which is pretty instantaneous, you'll realize, oh, what I want could actually look like this. And isn't that, in fact, better? And then a lot more exciting possibilities start to unfold. The trick is to notice when you're in this space, this stillness, where you're contemplating the fact that you're not quite where you want to be, but you're no longer who you've been. Greet it instead of, once you learn to get really good at dissolving the anger, fear, and sadness, that is everything you placed in the way between you and that which you want. That's the shadow aspect. You're always going to come up against that first, especially if there's unresolved issues. But when you get really good at being able to dissolve that in the moment, there is a transfer of energy that takes place very, very quickly. And in such a way that it just feels like the lights get turned on. What you're doing in that moment is you're plugging yourself back into unity consciousness. You're plugging yourself back into the reality that, yes, I am absolutely the creator of my entire reality. Full stop, soup to nuts, period, the end, without exceptions, and not just up to a point. I have created things based on choice points where I didn't know any better at the time because they were clouded by anger, fear, and sadness. I'm no longer doing that. So now I'm plugged into the field of infinite possibilities again. Things are going to naturally reveal themselves because I've made myself available for receiving a greater, let's just say, ream of material of the contents of consciousness itself. The contents of consciousness, it contains everything, anything and everything that could ever be known, anything you can ever have awareness of, because it already exists. So a lot of people think that they're manifesting, but here's another part where you can embrace the paradox. People think of manifesting as attracting something or pulling it out of some dimensional space and then making it real. It's all already here. Creation is finished. So when you're moving to a higher consciousness state, it's just the contents of consciousness. More of that is being revealed to you to see more of what is available. So you're plugging back into, without interference, without distortion, you're plugging back into the field of infinite possibilities, aka unity consciousness, where you are one with everything and everything already exists because you are everything and everyone and everything is you. Now, this might sound paradoxical in itself, just explaining this, but we are here to be in this kind of sweet spot of being in between ways of being, in between consciousness states, is where the alchemy of creative new possibilities and potentials actually takes place. And that isn't in the doings. It's not an active phase of doing necessarily. Now, the action part is preferential because we are in a physical reality realm, but that's not actually the creation. The creation is when you're in the stillness. It's what you would think of as the passive moment, the passive void, when you are just open and free and breathing in presence with the all that is. That's the inception of creative new possibilities and potentials. The doing just becomes incidental after that. You're just kind of rearranging things. And even though it might seem that you're rearranging things in an outer physical environment, that outer physical environment doesn't actually exist. There is no experience outside of you because we're all projecting and reflecting our own version and universe of reality. So your doings are really incidental, and it just kind of helps with the mind's illusion of continuity in the linear construct. So what I love to do is help people ground this idea. And it's helpful if you're able to at least accept the possibility and somehow embrace the concept that you are 100% the creator of your own reality. And to be a master manifester is to really understand and work with the premise that I offered up for you here today. This is what we do in Unity Scholl. This is my membership community of like-minded souls who are here to be the sacred rebels, you know, the lighthouses, the torchbearers, the truth tellers, the maverick creators, the ones who see a bunch of people going in one direction and the status quo and the gen pop doing one thing, and we take a hard 180 and go the other way. If you're that person, you are my people. And so Unity Scholl is a membership community where every month we meet for 3 times a month, 3 powerful calls. We're going to do this over the next year together, where we're going to be grounding these concepts and making the Unity consciousness paradigm, thought and action premise, something very real in your life that has hands-on application. It's tangible, it's applicable, it changes your life now. And this level of manifesting reality, it completely frees you because you no longer operate in any kind of victim mentality. This opens up and plugs you into the infinite possibility spectrum of creative potential. And once you get a taste of that, there's no going back. You can't unknow what you know in this space. You can't unsee what you see. You can't undo what you'll be doing in this space. So Unity Scholl, I've got all the information down below. I really hope this information helped you today. Mwah. Bye for now.